Thank you, first of all, for everyone who's chosen to join our session today. We really appreciate you being here. For anyone that doesn't know, the Women in Digital or Women in E-commerce series is actually something that we host every single time we have a CX circle. It's really important to us here at Contentsquare, myself personally as well. And it's just really important for us to mention that this session is for everybody. This conversation is for everybody. The last thing we want to be is exclusive, and we really believe that everybody can support people that identify as women. So thank you so much for being part of this conversation, and please don't hesitate to share your questions as well. So I've got an amazing panel with me here today. I'm just going to flip to the next slide. It's the same Slido as the previous breakout room, and you've got it in the top corner as well. Our session for today is all about leveling up your career. So I've got 3 incredible women with me, and I'd love to just take the opportunity for each of you to introduce yourselves. First and foremost, so Leah, we'll start with you.
Okay, hi everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name's Leah Rankin. I'm the Chief Product Officer at Siteminder. For those of you who don't know who Siteminder is, in simple terms, we have a revenue and distribution platform for hotels, which essentially means we help hotels acquire guests like your lovely selves and obviously maximise their revenue. So yeah, pleasure to be on today's panel.
Hi everyone, I'm Viv Girgis. I am the Head of Data Performance and Value Optimisation at Qantas Loyalty. I've been in the organisation across the group for 17 years, way too long. But over the course of the last few years, I've taken on this role more to improve the personalised experiences for our Qantas frequent flyer members, as well as enhance the experimentation program, and lastly, the rebuild digital analytics. So any of you, I think one of you mentioned in the previous panel about the painful journey of G4 or Google 4. Yeah, we're on that one. So
that's so weird, Viv. It's the first time hearing of that. That's so strange.
We were literally talking about that earlier. Hi everyone, my name's Dani Masi. I'm the Senior Director of Ecom at Optus. I've been at Optus 8 years and in digital and ecom space for going on about 13 years. What my role entails is I am a chapter area lead and tribe lead of a cross-functional agile tribe of e-commerce people of around 70, and we're essentially accountable for revenue generation and optimising the experience on the optus.com.au website, my Optus app and web chat channels.
Thank you all so much. So obviously today we're talking a lot about careers and everything that goes into that very large, diverse journey. I think a good place to start is motivation, right? What's been your biggest driver or motivation to get you where you are now, would you say? And Dani, if we maybe start with you.
Yeah, absolutely. To be honest with you, when we kind of talked about this is a tough one to think about. I think motivation has to come from within. I have a bit of a personal mission of creating value and making people feel valued. So if I'm not doing one or two, or ideally both of those two things, I think I'm in a values misalignment and I'm not in the right role. So that has kind of led me to do this job. It's highly measurable. The last panel discussion was a great example of that, with the data-driven decisions you can make and the real-time updates that you can get with all these amazing tools. And so the creating value is there, and then the leading a large team is definitely my value driver for making people feel valued as well.
Amazing. And I love that, nice and early in this discussion, we've kind of hopped onto the value-driven idea. This came up a lot in our prep conversations, and I think if you haven't done that work yet, that's totally fine. It's never too late, but really like what you're saying there about just identifying what is important to you, because that's what's going to help you know what's the right opportunity, isn't it? Yeah. Viv, do we want to go with you next?
Yeah, I have a personal one and a professional one. So personally, I have a very traditional upbringing. So I've Egyptian background. So you can imagine that there might be traditional roles for each gender, may I say. So my motivation is to sort of prove out that you can have both the career and the family. I really didn't like being told that I couldn't do something. And one thing I didn't mention was my career started as learning to fly. I wanted to be a pilot. And so essentially, You can imagine the backlash that I got when I said I was going to be flying and not being at home. And so that's not the reason why now predominantly my career's on the ground. But really, I wanted to prove out that I could do that. So that's one side of the motivation. And the other side is actually taking people on a journey, something that's possible, like impossible to achieve. And then once you achieve it and really share that with your team is really rewarding for me.
I know that resonates a lot with you, Leah.
Yeah, definitely. I think one of my biggest passions is people, and that might sound a little bit sort of, trite in a way, but like I think, just being able to work with people, take them on the journey, but also be able to, see how they grow, be able to also figure out how you can match people together in a team in a way that complements. I think, I'm a big believer in team. I'm a big believer in making sure that you have complementary skills to actually level up as a whole team together. It's not about individual contributors, it's about the whole. And I do believe you can make a real difference in doing that. So for me, my passion is definitely building high-performing teams. I love being around people. I love the passion that brings. And yes, we're in tech, but, people build tech, people buy tech. And we design, tech for people. So for me, that's what it's all about ultimately, and that's what gets me very excited.
I think, again, when we were talking earlier, we were saying about how exactly what you touched on there, Leah, a really wonderful leader in our business as well, always says that people do business with people. So it doesn't matter what industry you're in. I think if you can find what makes people tick and you can help them kind of, as you say, like really intricately put that together in a team, you get something that's more than the sum of its parts, which is really exciting. Yeah. Fun fact, by the way, people are my passion was my first sentence in my personal statement. So I don't think it's cringy at all. I think it's very great.
Awesome.
The next question we've got here is all about, how, I love this question so much. How deliberate, keyword there, have you been when it comes to actually planning and advancing your career? Do you have practical advice for people looking to advance in their careers, or are you actually someone that kind of wants to steer right away from it? What would you say?
So I recently went back to my university. I grew up in Tasmania, and I went back to the University of Tasmania in Hobart. They invited me back to be on a career panel, actually, not dissimilar to this, which was a real honour. But I tell you that because I did a Bachelor of Arts. And at the time, even my fellow panellists, they've gone into a lot of administrative or political backgrounds, and that's very much, I guess the obvious path for a Bachelor of Arts degree. But, my past 20 years I've been in tech, running product and engineering teams, starting off as a product manager or business analyst actually back in the day. And it was very much, I think my biggest reason why I think I went down that path, which a lot of people are very surprised at, that, did you do a comp-sci degree, engineering degree? No, I didn't, a Bachelor of Arts, which raises some eyebrows. But I think the biggest thing is just being open to opportunity, and how I got into my role was very much by doing that. I put my hand up to be involved in a particular project at Telstra, actually, back when I was working there initially. And that really opened the doors for me for other opportunities and building that rapport and that relationship. Again, back to the people aspect, really helped as well, not just for me to have great mentors throughout my career, but to be able to have those doors open for me in a way that has led me to where I am today, which I'm very grateful for.
So say yes to opportunity.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Me next? Oh,
Yes, please.
My career was not deliberate at all. So I got a lot of feedback around the differing roles I took on. So although I've been at Qantas for a while, I've had roles in engineering, revenue management, sales, now in Qantas loyalty. So it's been quite an eclectic area or career path. What I will say, though, is two pieces of advice. One, control the inner imposter syndrome. We all have it, whether or not we're women, identify as women or not. So try to recognise that you're doing it and try to rationalise it, although it's really hard. I mean, I don't really love speaking publicly, but I am because I'm rationalising that voice. The second for me is you can see that I've had quite a different career path, making sure that you can just draw on experiences and being able to say how that relates to your next role. So we've all done project management, we've all done strategy, we've all done budgets. Like, that's really easy to move on to another role, and it doesn't have to be in the same path. Like, you know, if I'm in finance, I don't have to be a CFO. Do you know what I mean? So that's really worked for me.
Yeah, I think going back to what I was saying earlier for me about values alignment, I have learnt, and I didn't know this from day one of being a big girl and having a big girl job, has become and will continue to be really important. It's also important to know, what am I getting out of any opportunity? So the way that I have now learned to approach my career is, what's in it for me? Which I think when you're earlier in your career, you kind of look at it very much the other way. It's kind of like, I want to help. Now it's like, well, what am I going to learn from this experience? Am I paid fairly? It's quite often a conversation, even as women, that we don't have very openly around salary and pay. And then also, what does it mean next? So what am I going to learn? What door might this open for me? And not having such a kind of linear path in mind, and learning that the career is no longer a ladder, it's a lattice. I don't know what the latest stats are, but they say something like people of our generation are going to have about 10 to 15 different careers in their lifetime, like kind of career paths, let alone functions or roles. So I think with that kind of expansion of mindset, but making sure those few little check boxes are being met and there's value alignment, kind of has opened up a few doors for me mentally to just look at what else might be out there outside of that kind of direct path that I thought I might have been on.
Yeah, definitely. It sounds like almost having your ideals really clear for you has allowed you to be more open-minded, actually.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I like that. It's a good hack. You're reminding me a little bit, Dani, of I heard some advice once of, you know, your framework going into interviews will completely change when you realize that they have to be a good fit for you as well. And it just kind of helps you to be like, oh, hang on, I've got like some control and power in this. Yeah. Please feel free to add to the Slido, by the way, everybody. We're really keen to take some questions from the audience towards the end of the segment. Our next question is all about, thanks to the bravery of our panelists, in the spirit of authenticity, can you think of any career obstacles or mistakes, if that's what you want to call it, that you've learnt from, that you feel everyone here could benefit from? Viv, shall we start with you?
Sure. One of the things I probably learnt, and everything's good in hindsight, so comparing your career to others. So I've talked about, obviously, what my driver is and wanting to balance out my personal versus my career path. And one of the things I struggled with was to take a step back and actually focus on family for a period of time. So I've got 3 daughters, and so some of you may know you have to take out time for your family. And so your skills aren't redundant and your experiences are not redundant when you need to take a step back, and opportunity is always going to come to you. In the middle of it, I just felt like I was missing out. But in hindsight now, in the position that I'm in, opportunity does always come to you. If you maintain your relationships and your network, I know it's very cliche, but essentially it does open up doors, and you don't have to worry about, taking a step back. So that would be one thing that I've learnt across my journey.
I think that's really, really valuable to share, because I think probably just about everyone can relate to thinking, I'm going to miss out if I do what's right for me right now. So that's really wonderful.
Yeah. My journey was all about confidence. So I am an introvert, which a lot of people who know me are surprised by, but after this I'll have to go and sit in a dark room for 4 hours or something. And I also have generalised anxiety disorder. So those 2 things together has meant that despite being really passionate about my career, no matter sort of what you do, particularly if you want to be in leadership, you've got to present, you've got to get up on stage, you've got to engage a group and influence and all the rest of it. So I got a lot of feedback when I got to kind of the before the exec point on, you've got to be more confident, you've got to be more confident. And I was trying to do confidence. And what I learned after about 1 to 2 years of trying to replicate the mostly men around me, but kind of what I thought doing confidence was I've got to be confident. And that change in mindset on, well, what does that look like on me, for me? It can be quiet. It can be before the meeting. It can be after the meeting. It can, these days, be virtually in the chat. I have built up a little bit more of that confidence, but I also, I think, learnt for the most part what that looks like on different people and what that looks like on me. And that was hugely impactful. And I haven't had that feedback since.
Yeah, I think another great example as well of, you want to stay authentic to yourself, and just because you haven't seen it doesn't mean it's not a viable, totally authentic option for you. And also you don't realize who you're role modeling for. So thank you so much for sharing that, Dani. I know that takes strength.
Yeah, absolutely, thank you. So I think for me, often I've been told I'm too kind or too soft. It's always makes me laugh, actually. It's like, what am I supposed to be? Meaner?
Be mean.
Yeah, mean and nasty. It's like, I'm not sure that's how you get things done. But I think for me, it's just being genuine and being comfortable with vulnerability. It's actually okay that we're all humans. We all have bad days. We all, have, had an argument with the husband when we've left the house, or, just generally having a bit of a down time. And sometimes just being able to be comfortable to show that vulnerability at work with your team, with your people, is actually really important, because it creates that safe space. And having a safe space is for me, critical for empowering teams and for growing teams and for making sure that people can do the best and be the best they can be. And so I think, for me, I don't think it's possible to be too kind. In fact, I think that's the one thing we should all strive to be. But just be yourself, I think, is probably the advice I'll give. And that might be a good version of yourself, a slightly off version of yourself, or the best version of yourself, and all three are okay.
Absolutely. Every time that you're vulnerable, you give someone else permission to do that as well. That's really important. Absolutely, Leah. Outside of your own drive and ambition, where do you find inspiration and support? What keeps you supported?
So I guess for me, my team at work, and that might again sound like I've got no life, which perhaps it does. There might be something in that, but no, it is. I do get a lot of energy from people. So going to work, being at work, being around people is really important to me. I have a wonderful husband who is also very important to me, and that's where my motivation comes from, knowing that I'm doing the right thing and enjoying myself, but also that I've got that support. I think that is really important to me, and I definitely take, I suppose, cues from others to know, when I can lean in, when I cannot, and that's probably my biggest motivator.
Motivation, definitely agree with you, team. And I would probably add to that, scorecard metrics. So definitely love leading a team, but I'm also very outcome and data driven. So those two things together is just a big tick for me. Inspiration, I am a massive reader. In particular, I love audiobooks. So I live right at the base of the Blue Mountains, and I drive into Macquarie Park for an hour 3 times a week. So I listen to a ton of audiobooks. I listen really widely and kind of take little bits and pieces of things that interest me and leave what doesn't. And support is definitely my husband and my 2 schnauzers.
Yes, for dogs.
I don't know. You guys have said pretty much, all amazing things. For me, yes, it is scorecard, unfortunately. Part of it also for me is, this is also going to sound really cliche, but I have 3 daughters, and I need to show them that, you really can be successful, and success isn't just in your career or in, the way you raise your family, but in generally in everything, and creating that balance. So for me, it's actually showing them that. So what would be really rewarding for me is if they one day sort of said, Mum was great, she was the mum, but she also supported us, and she had her own career and independence. I like that. And again, I stress that this is for anyone. It's not just for women, it's for everyone. So that really motivates me. And then obviously, like you said, getting energy from your teams and really drawing on innovation and delivering that journey, I really, really enjoy that. So that's my motivation.
When you were saying that, Viv, all I could think of was like that that quote, be the change that you want to see in the world. I think that's so important. And you're so right, anyone can do that. If you feel like you haven't seen something that you would have benefited from, what a great thing to go after, I think. Yeah. Thank you all so much. We've got some really incredible questions on the Slido, so I'd like to transition to those, if that's all right with all of you. The most kind of upvoted one at the moment is, how do you stand out when businesses typically promote men? Women are often criticized for traits that are valued in men. This person's written, for example, being assertive versus being bossy. Really good question there, yeah. Do any of you have some thoughts?
No, I just have 1,000 thoughts. I don't know which one.
So many thoughts.
Has anyone seen the Barbie movie? You know that monologue? That's just coming to mind. It's like, you can't be the bitch. Sorry, no offense. And you can't be too nice. Yeah. So I have some thoughts, but I mean, for me, it's just, if you're passionate about something and you are delivering value and you know you're doing it in a way that you're being kind, and I think that's the best thing that you can do. And you don't need to prove anything to anyone. I think, to your point, or whoever asked the question, you don't have to be a male, dare I say, to be assertive. Like, you can be assertive as a female. All you got to think about is just be respectful. Think about the other side. When you can be assertive and respect someone else's viewpoint and acknowledge their viewpoint. And I think that's been really successful in where I've landed today, is just making sure that you've got that perspective. But you can absolutely be the person you want to be. You don't have to sort of put on a facade.
Yep. 100%. And I think if a company is actually acting that way, or then I think they're the wrong company, like as in you shouldn't work there. I think the best teams I've been on and the best execs that I've seen operate are ones that are diverse, inclusive. We've all got different views and different opinions. As I said before, I think if you have all of the same, that equals the same. You can't elevate, you can't, make sure that you can sort of step up and become the best team you can be. So for me, yes, of course, we've all experienced it. In those instances, that's been a big turn-off for me, and finding the right company with the right culture is really important, and hopefully we can then weed out the bad ones.
Completely agree with everything that's been said. One build would be get results. Yep. So like you can't argue with a leader, no matter how they identify, how they present themselves, that generates value for the business, has a team that loves them, and networks and gets efficacy across other leaders in the business. So connect with people, influence, and get results, and just try and block out the noise of whatever else is going on around you.
Absolutely. And I think always, this is just one option, but I found it really helpful to find a space to talk about it as well. You don't have to share all the specifics, but you can just share your dynamic with wonderful people like we've got here today. And they'll have loads of different ways that, they can kind of help give that feedback and be that soundboard. And I think that's a really, underutilized resource. Yeah. Let's lean on each other. The next most popular question we've got is, what role do mentorship and sponsorship play in advancing women's careers in digital, and how can women proactively seek out these relationships? Yeah.
Maybe I'll start, but I think having a mentor, coach, someone to support you is really critical. It's certainly been critical in my career. I've had many, whether they be as someone that actually is a leader in the company that I'm working in, or someone external. How to seek someone like that. I think, great communities like this, networking events like this is such a fantastic way to connect with people, particularly in a similar field. I think, LinkedIn and tools like that these days, it makes it so much easier to reach out. And so don't be afraid to do that. Reach out and say that you'd like to connect and have a conversation, have a coffee. And even if that person's not the right fit, because maybe they won't be, then they may have someone that they can recommend. So yeah, that would be my advice. But definitely, yeah, mentorship is amazing.
I mean, for me, two different things. Sponsorship is that person that's actually going to back you for your next move. So you definitely have to think strategically around who is going to sponsor you and work on that relationship more for career development. Mentorship for me is someone I have to resonate with at a foundational level. So both to some degree personally and professionally, and who's going to be honest with me about my approaches, my viewpoints, and someone I can soundboard pretty honestly about certain topics and potentially sensitive topics. So navigating that. And the way I've generally found that person or people is if I resonate with their approach to leadership, the things that they say, then I will go and target that person to be able to build out that mentoring relationship. It does not have to be formal. It's actually, for me, it's better when it's informal because it's a lot more comfortable.
Again, agree with everything. The only thing I would add is a really effective mentoring relationship is two-way. So think about what you can offer to the mentor as well as a mentee, and maybe it's that you might be younger in your career and there's a lot that person might be able to learn from you around emerging tech or different leadership styles or needs of the upcoming generation. So don't discount you have something to offer for the mentor.
Thank you all so much. I think those are all very helpful pieces of advice. We've got time for one more question. I think this one ties really nicely into something that's been mentioned already, and I know we had some quite rightly very passionate thoughts about. How do you recommend women in digital navigate imposter syndrome, especially when entering leadership or high visibility roles?
Looking at me because I said it.
You don't have to go first, Viv.
Oh, mate. I'm very passionate about it. So how do we navigate it? Oh, God, this is a hard one to answer. You kind of don't. Like, I think if you recognise that, two things. If you recognise that everyone has it, it's like, you know, when you're speaking and everyone's naked in a room. It's that sort of thing, like you're naked too, so you kind of, like, you're all on the same page. But on the flip side, when I say rationalise it, know how think about it from a different perspective. So I might say, oh, crap, I'm sitting on a panel, and why do they care about what I have to say? But realistically, you probably do want to hear what I have to say, and I want to hear what you have to say, because then it allows you to get better experience, and it allows you also to know that you're on the right path. So I'd say it's probably not helpful advice, but
It is helpful advice.
I think you really need to think about sometimes the gravity of what your mind is telling you versus going, actually, that sounds kind of stupid, so calm down.
Yeah, for me, I think it's finding a small win. Again, struggling a little bit how to answer this, but certainly what I've found useful to get out of my own head is rather than trying to bite too much off and, you know, do a massive keynote from day one, you know, maybe just do something small that might even just be a very small kind of presentation at work, or just talking up in a meeting that we perhaps previously have not, and just taking that as a win and actually acknowledging that and backing yourself and feeling a little bit proud that there's nothing quite like kind of having that feeling where you're like, okay, cool, I did that. And then you can kind of hopefully sort of move from there. That's certainly helped me anyway.
Can I swear?
Yes.
I'm not going to stop you.
I want someone to swear.
Fuck imposter syndrome. And I hate that. I mean, I don't hate the person who asked this question, because I've asked this question, so this is not directed at you. But I hate that it's only ever asked to a panel of women. Like, it's just, when are we going to move on from this conversation? Not a helpful answer. Visceral response. I think breathe. No, I think the practical advice on top of what's already been said is to try and say F that in your mind. Like, why should you what is the narrative you're making up in your head? Because you probably are making it up in your head. I guarantee you're not sitting here judging all the people around you or in that meeting or in that boardroom. They're all thinking about what they're going to do once they leave, or what's for dinner, or the argument they had with their partner, or whatever it might be, right? So everyone is pretty much 95% self-involved, self-centered. So I guarantee no one's caring about you as much as you think they might be. And so maybe that's a really more practical, helpful perspective to take into imposter syndrome.
So true.
I feel like the goal in some ways is to get to where Dani is about imposter syndrome. Like, that's the North Star. We want to get to a point where we're like, no, thank you. There's just one quick tip I'll share, which I just find everyone I've spoken to about this, I'm sure all three of you will have something really similar as well. It's so simple, but a lot of what you were saying there, Leah, about like celebrate the things that you do well, it really does not matter how small they are. I have this folder on my desktop that is called You Go Girl, and every time someone literally just types the word thank you to me, I'm like, nailed it. And I just take a screenshot and I put it in the file. And then if I'm feeling a bit low one day, I just go through the screenshot. So find your version of that. It really helps. Guys, thank you so much. I always enjoy these sessions so much, and you've just all been an absolute dream. So thank you so much for saying yes and being part of this wonderful session. We really appreciate you.
Thank you.